what happens when you encounter something you don't expect? For a long time, psychologists thought that people learned fear, right? So your typical person, your typical lab rat, was a calm creature. Now it's a funny thing, because if you take a lab rat out of his home cage and you put him in a new cage where you want to teach him, say, to be afraid of something, to be afraid of a light paired with a shock, which is a typical psychological experiment. The funny thing about the rat is you got to let him calm down before he's normal. Well, except that you might think that the not calm rat is also the normal rat, right? You take the rat out of his cage and you put him in the new cage, and what does he do? He goes like this. Why? Well, he's a rat, right? Someone might eat him. So he's a bit nervous about being in this new situation. Rats do not like being in new situations. They don't like bright light. If you put them in a new situation that's brightly lit, they go right over to the corner because they think maybe cats won't find them. Rats are so afraid of cats that they never even have to meet a cat to be afraid of them. So you can take a rat that's never seen a cat in his life, and if you let him smell some cat odor or show him a cat, he'll, well, I'll tell you, if you show a rat a cat somewhere he doesn't expect it, he will run back to his burrow and scream for 24 hours. Now you imagine how scared you'd have to be to scream for 24 hours, especially given a rat only lives about a year. So that would be, for you, like screaming, that'd be like screaming for 3 months, right? So the rat runs back to his burrow, and he screams, and every other rat who hears him scream freezes, and they all stay like that for 24 hours till they sort of calm down. And then the first thing they do is they go back to the place where they saw the cat, and they start to map it out. So they do these things called corner runs, which is, so the rat wants to go back to this territory. He knows the territory might be a place where he gets food. Is the cat still there? Well, you might think, stay in the burrow, right? But then maybe you don't get something to eat. So the rat goes back to the place where the cat was, carefully, and then he hunches down, and he runs over part of it. And if nothing kills him, then he goes back and does the same thing with a little more of the territory until finally the rats have run all over the territory again. Then they go back to eating, making love, paying attention to their families, because rats are quite social despite the fact that they're rats. The rat's smart enough to go back to the scene of the crime, so to speak, right? It's not going to let the dragon that might be there grow. The rat knows that if something is terrifying, it should be investigated, not run away from. The question is, what do you encounter when you encounter something you don't expect? And so you say, well, you've got your spouse mapped out, right? But then they do something you don't expect, which hopefully happens fairly regularly, right? Because otherwise you get bored with them. They do something you don't expect, and you think, aha, who is that person precisely? And what that means is that what that means is that when you encounter something unexpected, you actually can't see what's there. Why? Because it's too complicated. You might have to spend a month talking to your spouse to figure out just exactly why they have that particular peculiar opinion. You have to explore and dig to find out how they map the world. If you encounter something unexpected, the first thing you see is not the world. The first thing you see is just a sense of discomfort and fear combined with some latent curiosity that the world is not the way you thought it was. Now, how do you find out what the world is actually like? Well, you have to investigate it. You have to investigate it. It means you have to take a risk. You have to move forward the same way that people do in psychotherapy. You have to find the thing that you're bordering on avoiding and go in and map it.